All of your hair fell out in 8 weeks.
I was going through an enormous amount of stress, had no eyebrows, no eyelashes. I looked like a cancer patient. I just didn't recognize myself anymore. Do the things that gave me good energy, and I stopped doing the things that gave me bad energy.
One of the biggest red flags for me now is people that complain.
Even though the market was hot, we never paid hot prices. But a lot of middle class are not educated in this. The tax rules are written for real estate investors.
Yep.
We're just following the rules. I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. Someone said the more real estate you buy, the less loyalty you have to your company. We were able to 7x our net worth.
Wow.
7x.
In how many years? All right. Welcome to For Your Own Good. I'm Kassidy Warren, and I'm here with Vivian Yip. Thank you so much. We're in Austin, Texas, and you are the owner of Hestia and Corporate Rentals USA.
That's correct.
You focus on midterm rentals and educating people to get into midterm rentals, or if they were in long-term or short-term, and helping them get into that. And also you provide some services around that. But excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I was looking through some of your bio and your background, and I think we have some similar traits, similar background. I also worked corporate tech, quit my job. I have Canadian roots.
Oh, do you
Also,
really?
yes.
From where?
BC and Richmond, and actually all the way over to Winnipeg, Manitoba, if you go far enough back.
My family immigrated to Richmond, BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm up in Seattle, so lots of trips up to Vancouver, Squamish, Whistler. We spend actually quite a bit of time up there.
Me too. Tore my first ACL there.
Skiing.
The first time. Yep.
Yep. I'm fortunate I haven't torn anything. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in Squamish, just hiking and enjoying the outdoors. It's a real nice place for us. So something else. Oh, wake surfing. I saw that you were a wake surfer.
Yeah. Do you wake surf?
I love wake surfing.
You need to come back in the summertime.
Yeah.
And I'll take you out.
Yes.
We have a little lake property out by Lake Travis.
Okay.
And we have a Super Aeronautique. Best wake boat there is. And yeah, can you beer bong on a wake surf yet?
I was gonna ask you about that. So I don't drink, but if you give me a beer bong and like a soda water, I will absolutely do it on a wake boat. Yeah. So for everyone listening right now, there's a video of her on your social media. Your progression of wake surfing over the years, and then kind of culminating in you beer bonging with no rope on on the wakeboard.
Don't tell everybody my secret skill that's completely useless.
Yeah, but that's a lot of fun. I mean, I think it says what kind of person you are. So, and then I was also looking at your website, and I noticed the logo that you have on there. Can you tell me about the flower, and is there any meaning behind that?
There's actually meaning behind both Hestia and the Lotus. When I was envisioning a brand that represents midterm rentals, I was thinking, like, what does it mean? It means to me hospitality at the end of the day, and having a warm place to be with your family. And if you're a fan of Greek mythology, then you'll know that Hestia is the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home. Yeah. And the Lotus, if you're not joining us over a podcast as opposed to YouTube or something, I'm Asian, of Asian descent. I'm Chinese. And the lotus is a flower that represents peace and resilience. And at the time that I came up with Hestia, I was going through a lot of turmoil, right? Losing my hair, trying to quit my corporate job. And the lotus just reminded me that you can be resilient, because the lotus can grow into this beautiful flower no matter how muddy the waters are.
I love that. Yeah. It's something that I saw that was kind of consistent through all of your branding and your pages and your social media. So, and since you brought it up, you did mention that you lost your hair. When I first was introduced to you and saw you, I never would have guessed that you lost it. You seem like the kind of person where you're like so badass that you're like, I'm just going to shave my hair. That's me. Like, that's what I'm doing. And so, but that's not the case.
That's not the case. No, I used to have a full head of hair. I had my hair my whole life. And I had alopecia when I was younger, like little bits of hair loss in bald spots, alopecia areata. But I always managed to control it by going to the dermatologist and getting steroid shots. But in 2020, when I was going through an enormous amount of stress, it literally just fell out in like 8 weeks. After every Zoom call, after every meeting, every night I would have clumps of hair just continue to fall out, and I couldn't control it anymore.
So all of your hair fell out in 8 weeks.
Yes. So by the time my husband convinced me to shave it, because I would wake up and I would look like Albert Einstein because it was dry, it was dead. I would just have some like I had lost 95% of my hair, and he's like, "Why don't you just shave the rest of it?" And I was really surprised at how freeing it was when I shaved my head, because it honestly felt like I gained back control. It
Mhm.
was a really cool feeling.
Did you ever talk to your husband about him talking to you about it? Like, did he have to work up the courage to talk to you about it, or what was that conversation like? Or his,
I
ha
don't know. Um, we have a really close relationship, and I don't think he ever felt like he had to walk on eggshells to approach the topic. I think he's just I think it was the morning of January 1st, 2020, when he looked at me, he laughed. He's like, "Why don't you just shave it? Because you look ridiculous." And that's when I looked in the mirror. I was like, "I do kinda look ridiculous." So, I mean, no feelings hurt there. I think he was helping me.
That's pretty incredible though, like, after 8 weeks of major life change, and then to be able to laugh it off and
Yeah, I've always been a silver lining kind of person. Obviously, it wasn't easy to go through. Losing your hair is a really devastating thing for any woman, even for men. Even I mean, you have a beautiful lock of hair right there,
Thank
right?
you.
If you were to lose it in 8 weeks, it's a devastating experience, but, I found ways to cope with it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring up my hair because my wife, and I'll let her tell her whole story, uh, she was losing her hair a little bit, and so I used to buzz my head for ease, right? I didn't wanna deal with anything, but, she told me one day, she's like, "Well, you're fortunate that you get to have all your hair. You should grow it out and have nice long hair as long as you can." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, she's right." I was taking it for granted, just because I wanted something easy, and so I've been growing
Yeah.
it out ever since.
I'm the opposite. I love this ease. Like, I can't imagine having hair anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is work. It's a lot of work.
It is.
You mentioned something, you said it was something that you were taking back control
Mhm.
with it, and I also saw a post where you talked about this. You started focusing on other things, right? Focusing on the positive things. How much of that was like, is part of your life, even with or without your hair, or just in your work?
It's weird. I think about this a lot, about why my mindset is the way that it is, and I really attribute this to my dad, because he's always like, "What's the worst that can happen?" So that forces me to think about like, "Oh, actually the worst didn't happen. I've anchored the worst that could happen, and it didn't happen." So I'm like, "Phew, I'm okay." And focusing on that and the positive side of things has really helped me. So when I was going through my hair loss, I noticed that every time I looked in the mirror and I had no eyebrows, I had no eyelashes, I looked like a cancer patient. It wasn't a look that I was used to. Like, it was I guess I would say, like, I just didn't recognize myself anymore. And I didn't like the way it made me feel. So instead, I would just spend time in the kitchen. I love cooking, so I would just focus on cooking. I love looking at real estate, so I'd stare at my computer a lot. I would analyze deals and just look at off-market deals, look at properties I could flip, analyze numbers on a spreadsheet, do the things that gave me good energy, and I stopped doing the things that gave me bad energy. And honestly, it's the best thing I ever did. And at the same time, I'm a parent, right? I've got 2 kids, they're looking up to me, and if I laid in bed and felt sorry for myself, I felt like, what am I doing anybody a favor? I'm not doing myself a favor. I'm not being a good role model for my kids. So, just focusing on and not looking in the mirror and just focusing on things that I loved was the best thing.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I am a firm believer on what you focus on expands,
Yeah.
and we have the power to focus on what gives us energy versus what takes energy from us. And I'm in this phase of shedding skin and constantly evolving by staying present in myself and analyzing actually how things make me physically feel,
Yeah.
right? Not just how am I reacting emotionally, whether
Mhm.
internally or externally, but how is my body, like, physically feeling when I'm talking to someone or in a certain situation or dealing with a certain problem, and then really reflecting on that and what that means for whether I want to do it or I don't want to.
Yeah.
and whether I should be protecting my energy or going all in, full energy, light me up, let's go, or subtract and move on, and being okay with the consequences of that.
Totally. And there have been times where I've belonged to these toxic Facebook groups that are just a bunch of idiots. And I'm just like, you know what? The best thing for me to do is just leave it, even though it's like sometimes it's funny stuff. But at the same time, like, is this a good use of my energy? No, then let's get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm definitely subtracting stuff out. One of the biggest red flags for me now is people that complain.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just complain about whatever, about this line or this took that long, or and I used to be one of those people, so it kinda triggers me now, when I hear it and when I see it,
Yeah.
but people that just complain, people that don't take accountability, stuff pointing fingers, all that, I have no desire to be any part of it anymore.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So, also going on at this time, you weren't just investing in real estate, you were working for, like, a big tech company, so you were, like, doing double duty, right?
I was doing double duty. It was, you know what? You speak about the velocity of money. I met this like stranger at an airport and he sat down next to me and asked me to use my charger, waiting for a flight. And I was, in true Vivian fashion, right? Like I'm a very talkative person. And I was just like, hey, where are you off to? And he's like, oh, I'm going to Aruba. And long story short, he's like, I'm kind of sick of the beach and sun. I'm going to Aruba for a month because, I'm meeting my wife and kids there, but I just spent a month in Bermuda. I was like, "Oh, poor you, first world problems, but tell me what you do again?" And he told me about how him and his wife owner operated a motel or hotel somewhere, in their early 20s, and then they bought another one and bought another one. They own a chain of hotels, and I was like, "Damn, that's what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, not trading time for money anymore." So I was 36 or 37 years old when that happened, and I flew to China, did my job over there, came back, and I was like, "James, we're gonna change our lives because in 5 years from now, if I'm working in corporate, just kill me." Because it was the same thing every single day. You go to work you don't have kids, right?
No.
Okay, so when you have kids, they're up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, you get them ready for school, you go to work all day, come home, then you cook them dinner, clean the kitchen, read them a book, give them a bath, put them in bed, and then it's the same stuff all over again every single day. And I was like, I think there's more to life than this because in my 20s, I had so much fun. And I think I was really bitter too because my company basically had an unwritten rule that nobody could take time off during launch period. So that meant that I couldn't take time off to go visit my cousin in Hong Kong for her wedding. I have a really small family, so it really would have meant a lot to me if I could go to Hong Kong to see her, but because it was that period, I was like, "I never wanna ask anyone for another day off." That's simply that. So how do I do that? I gotta do something different or accept my circumstances, right? And that's when we looked into flipping houses.
You mentioned earlier about being a role model to your kids, and the routine that you described, I think is pretty common across anyone that's a parent.
Yeah.
I think everything you just described, and we have a lot of nieces and nephews, and we've spent a lot of time sort of living with them as we visit, right? You go stay at the house,
Yeah.
and that's the routine that I've seen
Yeah.
in all my friends, and I wonder what it looks like to be a role model beyond just running a family operation that way. Be a role model to break out of the norm, be a role model to then go start flipping houses, to go create your reality, to go create a future outside of just going to school, getting them ready. Not that there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
but if you have the desire, what is it like to be a role model for your kids to do that?
I think it's pushing them to go beyond what they believe they can do because that's where confidence grows from. And my son and my daughter, for instance, when I quit my job, my daughter had come up to me and she's like, "I wanna try figure skating." I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And before you knew it, in that first year and a half that I quit my job, I was able to take them to practices, watch them grow, watch them fall, watch them do their first turn. Next thing you know, they're in competitions. It's really taking them out of their normal comfort zones and letting them expand their experience. And I think that I James and I both demonstrate this, is that if we want to try something, we do it. Because only by trying and failing forward, that's how we become role models. And even my son, they're both not figure skating anymore, but my daughter's drawing, which is amazing. She's an incredible artist. But my son, he was a very skinny, unconfident, not unconfident, but like quirky little boy. And we put him, my husband put him in jujitsu.
Yeah.
And I think for the first 6 months he would cry, "Why are you putting me in jujitsu? You just put me in here to watch me get beat up." And now, like 2 years later, he just won JV award for winning 20 matches.
Really?
And he walks around as this like bulky, tall boy, still quirky.
Yeah.
But he's handsome, he's very fit, and he's winning. And he's got this new sense of confidence that we never expected that he would have.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in sports, team sports, lifting weights, fitness,
Yeah.
and how much it can build confidence in yourself, especially a physical sport like jiu-jitsu, where it's not fighting, it's not punching, and you're not like trying to beat someone up. Strategic.
Yeah.
Physically strategic. There's something so beautiful about that. And I was also just thinking about how as adults, we struggle to remember that life is always about learning.
Mhm.
But when we look at kids, it's very easy for us to look at them and just be like, yeah, just keep going. Like, yeah, you're going to get beat up. Yeah, you're going to get bruised. Yeah, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Just keep going, right? And then to see their journey externally.
Yeah.
But for our own paths, it's hard to see that ourselves and how much we rely on other people to lift us up.
Totally. And I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine in San Diego talking about how important sports is to character development and the person you become later on in life. So when you were screening your assistant, you had mentioned you have an assistant. Did you ever talk about what kind of things they like to do outside in their spare time?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So I went into hiring her completely differently than I had hired assistants in the past, which did not work out very well.
Okay.
Yeah. One was because I wasn't who I am today and the leader and person that I am today. I hadn't done the work. And then I went into this as this is a partnership and we are in this together. This is a growth position. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I don't know what we're going to do, but here's what I'm doing. It's going to be a creative role. It's going to be an assistant role. It's going to be whatever you want to make of it. And so that was sort of my pitch too. But I really, when I was interviewing everyone, I was looking at them and feeling how much I could care for them and be empathetic and take care of them. Not that it's my responsibility to take care of them, but like, they are reliant on me paying them a salary, right? And so how much can I care about somebody? And that was a big shift in how I approached anything up to that point. And so Malloy, who's my assistant, she's incredible. I found out she is a rapper.
Wow.
Yes. Now she hasn't released anything, So
She needs to rap your intro.
Okay, there we go.
Right?
She will. She totally will. Yeah. She totally will. But she's very creative. She was an athlete also, and she's got a lot of great stories. And so there was a lot of interest. I had a lot of interest in knowing who she is and what she values as a person too.
Yeah. I think the epiphany that I had is that when you hire athletes, and don't look at how fat I am right now. I was a really good volleyball player at some point, and I'm a good snowboarder and wake surfer. But I was a competitive volleyball player. And I had this conversation with my friend who was like, I'm just struggling to figure out like, who do I hire and how do I hire well? And I think that when you focus on someone that's played competitive sports, it teaches you a lot. Number one, it's like discipline, right? Are you going to show up whether or not you feel like it or you're not? Are you going to be a team player? Are you going to have good sportsmanship? Are you going to be able to anticipate? That's a huge one for me.
That's a great point. Being able to anticipate is a fun, like a function of being in sports, knowing what the other team's going to do.
Right, especially in volleyball, like we were always trained to look at the other person's belly button. whichever way that their belly button's facing is probably where the ball's going to go.
Interesting.
So you have to watch the other team so you know how to defend.
Yeah.
But then also on the offense, you have to see where they're opening the holes. So I always see things in volleyball mode. What else? Being coachable. That's huge.
Huge. The biggest.
The
maybe.
biggest.
Yeah.
If they can't take constructive criticism, and then the big one, the big learning for me, we just talked about this before we started, is pivoting. Right? If you think you screwed up, can you pick it back up and pivot, or do you sulk in the error and it takes you down? And I think sports is like the coach says, hey, suck it up. Let's get back on the court. Okay, let's just do it. You just pivot.
Yeah. Kids need to learn how to lose also.
Yes.
Like, because I've seen a lot of kids that everything needs to be fair. They got this. I didn't get that. And it turns into a fight, an argument. When I think if you've played enough sports, you realize pretty quick that life's not fair. You're not going to get the call your way every time. And you just literally have to just keep going, keep playing the game. Right.
When my son won that plaque last week, my favorite thing on that plaque said, victory is earned.
Oh, I love that.
Right? No more of these special snowflake participation awards. I do not believe in those at all. Yeah. And I was so proud of him.
I love that. Victory is earned.
Yeah.
It's so funny with the participation trophies. And I want to get into your the work that you do, but with the participation trophies, everyone blames the millennials that we got those, but who gave us the participation trophies? It was the boomers, then the Gen X that gave us the participation trophy. It wasn't our fault, right? So anyways, really interesting. Great stuff. Like, thank you for sharing all that. I do want to go over the amazing stuff in real estate that you're doing. So you mentioned you started with flipping.
Yeah.
Are you still flipping?
So we had to take a break. We just started a new project. And we're waiting on permits right now, but we can scrape ceilings and things like that. My husband's doing that with a partner. But we had to stop for 2 years because Austin, being the hottest market, also became the coldest market over the last 2 years. So we stopped flipping because you don't know when it's going to bottom out. So it's like catching a falling knife. So while the market was changing, we had to pivot. So I started focusing more on velocity of money, right, with our current rentals, and my husband focused on the retail side of being a realtor because he still has that skill set, and he was able to actually do a lot of work with investors. So that was great. And I just focus on building a network of trusted midterm rentals.
Yeah, because as markets change and regulations change, your strategy in real estate needs to change. Because pivot. Because if you continue to flip because Austin is one of only a handful of markets that has really cooled off in the U.S. And so what that means is if you're a flipper, you rely on margins, you rely on the market going up to be able to feed your business, because you need to buy it at a discount, you need to spend a bunch of money renovating it, and then sell it for a premium because it's a brand new asset. Now in market prices have dropped, and so there's not the margins for you to be able to.
Your purchase price is how you make your money.
Yeah.
So even though we lost $100K of our own money, that's, again, we talked about seeing things. What's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen would have been we borrowed money with somebody and we would have owed some, but we lost our own money, and I'm forever grateful for that, because I never want to have that awkward conversation of, hey, I lost all your money, right? What was I going with that? I was going with, we lost a bunch of money, and we're recovering from it. It hurts, but it is what it is. We'll get it back. We know how to make the money. We'll get it back.
Yeah, because I think I read the quote that you said about your dad telling you what's the worst that can happen. And you also mentioned, well, what's the best that can happen?
Yes.
Right. And so a lot of times these pivots turn into something really great. And so I've been noticing on your social media a heavy focus on midterm rentals and like niching down really into helping people with midterm rentals. So what is a midterm rental, and why do I want to run them?
First, can I talk about why midterm rentals impacted me so much? My accidental discovery of midterm rentals is what gave me the confidence to have stable money so I could quit my job. I started in short-term rentals, and I experienced, even in 2019, I was experiencing the weekends booked, weekdays open, which was fine back then because we didn't have as much competition. But when you're in a saturated market and your weekends are booked and your weekdays are empty and you're still not making money, that sucks. So when I pivoted to midterm rentals in 2020, when people didn't know about it, it gave me a lifeline to quit my job so that I had at least some stable money coming in, and I spent all my energy to figure out the rest of it because there weren't any gurus or anybody teaching this stuff. I had to figure it all out. I mean, I did take a course. I think I took the course to round out the things that I didn't know because you don't know what you don't know, and it really helped me. So midterm rentals, we only had one when I quit my job, and I was on my way to owning a duplex when I was about to quit my second one. Uh, so when I was on my way to buy my second one. So literally, I closed on my duplex using a conventional loan.
Yeah.
And then a week later, the bank officer or the loan officer called and said, "Hey, we need a letter with proof of income." I'm like, "Why do I need to provide that?" He's like, "Well, we're just doing like a due diligence audit after the close." I'm like, "I don't owe you guys anything."
That's
So
right. You don't.
I don't,
You
and I
don't.
didn't produce anything. But I quit my job, I think like a few days before he asked that.
Yeah, and so we did something similar, and so anyone listening out there, if you're thinking about quitting your job, do a couple things before you leave, if you can. Go get pre-approval or go close on something
Yeah.
before you quit your job, whether you're buying an investment property or whatever, or go get a HELOC on your primary
Yeah.
residence, on your home, because you will not be able to do it once you quit your job. And do it before you close so you have proof of income, proof of pay stubs. And then once you have the HELOC or once you have the investment property, then you're all good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm so sad. I lost my HELOC. I had a huge HELOC on my old house,
Yeah.
but we sold it, and Chase Bank wasn't giving out HELOCs anymore.
Yeah.
Long story short, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't drown in sorrow over the past. So then I focused. So then I had, because I sold that property in Round Rock, because it was the market was hot. I didn't love the neighborhood anyways, because I'm a big believer in location, location, location. And the school sucked. The location position was great, but I didn't love it. So I was like, now the market's hot. I'm going to sell it. So I did, and I reinvested that money and bought whatever distressed property I could. So the duplex had a hoarder on one side and a low-paying tenant on the other side, and both sides needed to be renovated. So we renovated the hoarder side first, turned that into a midterm rental, and if it worked in Round Rock, it should work in the city, right? And it did work in the city. And then when the other side moved out, I renovated and turned that into a midterm rental, and then I improved the velocity of money there. After that, I was able to buy, oh my gosh, that year, even though the market was hot, we never paid hot prices. We always paid distressed prices and added value back to the home. And we were able to 7x our net worth.
Wow.
7x.
7x. In how many years?
A year and a half.
Whoa. Yeah. And so you've mentioned velocity of money a couple times. And the model that you're talking about is you use leverage to buy, right?
Yep.
But you buy at a discount.
Yep.
Because especially at that time, the market was hot, but people wanted better assets. The
Yes.
market wanted stuff that they didn't have to put a ton of work into. But then there's people like you that will come and do the work.
We don't even want a nice house. Don't give me a nice house. Give me the ugliest thing.
With full of hoarder, full of trash, as long as you can clean it up and fix it up and there's no foundational issues and no expensive repairs that won't add to the value,
Yep.
then that's what you buy. And so you bought at a discount using leverage, you forced appreciation.
And then force cash flow.
Exactly. And then the cash flow. And in your case, you use midterm cash flow versus short term. And then that's going to be far exceeding any long-term cash flow. And then I haven't asked you about this, but I'm sure you did some cost segregations and
Yep.
depreciation.
Oh yeah. We sold a flip and made $600,000 on it in 5 months. And my husband and I were like, shit, we're going to pay a lot of taxes. And that's when I started diving into tax-free wealth, and then, belonging to a bunch of real estate groups and stuff like that. They started talking about cost segregation, and we managed to minimize our taxes. I don't remember the number is now, but we wrote off a whole bunch of stuff.
Legally. Yes.
But that's the thing, like a lot of, I hate to say this, but a lot of middle class are not educated in this, that the the tax rules are written for real estate investors.
Yep.
We're just following the rules.
We are just following the rules. And I try to preach this. If you are a dual income or single income earner and you are paying a lot in taxes, which a lot of you are because you don't get any tax benefits, even with your 401k, you're not really getting tax benefits. But if you're a software engineer, engineer, manager, director, anyone with a W-2 job where a company pays you a salary, you need to go buy an Airbnb, if only for the tax benefits. And do midterms qualify for? No, they don't. Okay.
No.
And
So the short-term rental loophole is reservations of 7 days and less.
that's right.
But because the midterm rental model, we're 30 days and more, we don't qualify for that.
Yep.
However, that if you are a W-2 employee and you marry someone that's a full-time investor status, rep status, then you can still take advantage of a lot of the tax benefits.
Yep. And this is the other piece of that. If you're dual income, or let's say a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, and one person is a high income earner, the other spouse should get their rep status. It's the real estate professional status, if not only just to get the tax benefits for owning real estate.
But what if they have no interest in real estate?
Yes, I agree. But if you have a really good year, maybe you can be interested for a year or two.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and you're right. You shouldn't invest just for tax benefits. I totally agree. You should not invest just for tax benefits, because you need to buy good deals and you need to be smart. But for the average person, if you are making a lot of money and you are secure in your job, you should really look into and consider these two strategies. Whether you just go buy an Airbnb in a really expensive neighborhood, you don't even need to cash flow. Just buy something that's going to appreciate really heavily, and then you get to write off all those tax benefits through cost segregation depreciation. Or your spouse gets a rep status, and then you can go buy whatever you want, essentially.
What's your favorite book on this?
Okay, on cost segregation depreciation?
Just real estate strategies and tax benefits and building wealth.
That's a great, I haven't read a lot of actual real estate books. You mentioned Kiyosaki. He was the first one that opened up my eyes, Asset versus Liability. That was the first real estate book I ever really read. I haven't read Brandon Turner's, but I've read so much online, and I've been in forums, and I've watched YouTube videos, and I had the gut feeling of, I know there's a trick here. And that's when I found, and I talked to people and found cost segregation depreciation. I was like, oh, when Trump at his speech in 2016, I was bringing this up, Hillary was hating on him for not paying any taxes, or paying $750 in taxes or whatever. And he said, well, yeah, that's because I'm smart. What he was talking about is he buys a bunch of real estate and he offsets all of his other business income by using tax benefits through real estate. Yeah. So is there a book?
I think tax-free wealth is amazing.
Okay.
I learned so much in that book because he really just structured, it's like nothing illegal here.
No.
It's just how the code is written.
Yeah.
So you have to work and do what the code tells you to, and that's when you get the most benefits.
Yeah.
And it goes into oil and gas investing, into gold, into like bee harvesting. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but really the focus on that book is a lot on real estate.
Yeah, I think even in California, there's a rule about putting grape vineyards on your property, that if you have a certain percentage of grape vineyards on your property, it gets classified under a different status as like a vineyard, basically.
Yeah.
And I think your property taxes get like completely eliminated.
It's like here in Texas, if you get like animals, you get ag status, right? So it's very similar.
Exactly. And so there's these like these homes in, let's just say, Napa, Sonoma, that are, $15 million mansions, but because they have grapes on them, they don't have to pay any property taxes. So again, you as a regular person, I use that like very lovingly, because there's a lot of regular people listening to this. Go take advantage of the tax code. Like, your biggest bill, I'm talking to everybody out there, your biggest bill is your tax bill, and you don't even realize it because it's being taken out of your check before you even get a look at it. If you make $200,000 a year as a software engineer, you're paying about $75,000 in taxes. You can go buy one Airbnb and easily pay $0 in taxes, and at the end of the year, you get a big old refund check. So,
I have a friend, she's like a senior manager at Apple, and her husband's a senior manager at another big fintech company. Their combined income is like $850,000, maybe $900,000. And when they bought their short-term rental, they actually tore most of it down and rebuilt it. The property is worth $1.6 million now, and they did a cost seg on it, and they actually got $32,000 back.
yeah. And they made how much again?
Oh, their equity, they grew the equity by $1 million.
But
The
I mean,
value-
they're regular salaries.
Oh, like 850 to 900,000.
And they got a check back from the government.
Yep.
Because they owned one property.
Well, one vacation property.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
one vacation rental property. Right.
Yep.
Exactly. And so I talked to someone who is he's a dentist in Wisconsin, and he's like, "No, I make too much money. I can't." I was like, "Well, no, you just buy bigger short-term rentals, or you buy a couple of them. Like, go find a $4 million short-term rental,
Yeah.
and you're going to offset all of your taxes." And he had never even heard of that. So there's really successful, wealthy people out there that don't even know that they can very easily just go buy a short-term rental. There are things that you need to make sure you do, but it's easier than the rep status, meaning the 7-day rule.
The loophole.
Everyone calls it a loophole. It's just rules.
Yeah.
So the 7-day rule, meaning the average nights per stay have to be under 7 nights.
Yeah.
And then I think you have to spend 100 hours on the property, right?
You have to have material participation.
Yeah.
That means that you can have a property manager, but that is not that hard. Just get a property management system and get 80% of it automated, and the rest of it you should be able to manage on your own.
Yeah, and I think actually the rule is you, especially like in the first year, if you're spending all the time buying furniture and designing and all that stuff, you're going to spend more than 100 hours, I'm sure. But even if you have a property manager, as long as you spent more time than they did. So like in the first year, that should be
I thought it
true.
was 750 hours.
That's the reps status.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with the short-term rental, you only need, I think, 100 hours.
Okay.
With reps, you need a lot more.
Yeah, but for the average person, once you exceed over $150,000 income, then your standard depreciation is like $25,000, right?
Yeah.
But the way to overcome that is with the short-term rental loophole.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough on that, but
come on, taxes are.
This is what I preach to people.
Yeah.
But it's too complicated for the average person to.
I was gonna get it to you.
Yeah. Go for it. And you can spin this thing too. If you
Okay,
want.
I do have a question. So there's a next coworker of mine. He's like, how do I justify pulling money out of my stocks and buy real estate?
Well, great question. One, there's nothing wrong with locking in your profit. It's okay to sell. Just number one, because I think we have this mentality of like, but what if it grows? If I would have invested in Coca-Cola in 1950, I'd be a billionaire by now, right? That mentality of like set it and forget it, keep it there. The company's going to grow. I don't want to sell because I'm afraid of all the profit I could make in the future. Well, be okay locking in your profits. That's okay. So number one, that's just sort of a mindset thing. Number two, you are going to likely have a capital gains event, and then it's going to be taxed at ordinary income. So there's 2 taxable events when you sell stock, as far as I understand. But if you buy it.
Not financial advice.
Yes, not financial advice. I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax advisor, but this is just stuff that I've come to understand. If you buy enough real estate, you can reduce your AGI, your income, below a certain threshold, which will reduce or eliminate your need to pay any capital gains taxes, right? So if you make $600K a year and you go buy a $2 million property, you can likely get your income down below 88K. And that means you don't have to pay capital gains on anything.
Yeah.
Then the income, the money that comes in is taxed as income. But again, if you buy enough real estate, it offsets your income to then reduce your tax bill. So
my answer was go read a book and come back to me when you're ready. Because I don't have time to explain this stuff to people. If they don't want to learn on their own, I can give them like the bait. But you have to invest time to learn too, right?
yeah.
Do you get
or
annoyed?
they go to you, but then they don't get all the benefits. But yeah, well, you baited me. You got me on that one. I spent 5 minutes explaining how you do it, and then you're like, "No, go read a book." That's so funny.
No, I just maybe it's the Chinese in me. I'm just like straight up like, yo, I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink.
It's funny that you say that, because I would talk about this with people, and then I realized that what you just said, that they have to want to know it first. So I am doing this podcast to help get some of that information out there in the hopes that people are listening and think at least to go read a book or read something online.
Yeah.
But there were so many people that I was like, oh, they don't actually care about saving money. Not yet.
Yeah.
Or they never will.
Let's put it this way. For me, it was more about building a foundation of wealth so that I could have the option of quitting my job.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people find themselves in a situation where they get laid off, things that are not in their control. They're laid off, or they're not happy with their job anymore, like I was. And having something else to fall back on is a very freeing thing.
When you have a stack,
Yeah.
you can say no
Yeah.
a lot more.
Yeah.
When you have a stack to stand on,
Someone said the more real estate you buy, the less loyalty you have to your company.
100%.
That's so good, right? I just heard that the other day because it's FU money at some point. So I still, like, I've run into my ex-coworker sometimes and they'll be like, Vivian, I admire what you did. It was amazing. Like, how did you just quit your job with your family? You're the breadwinner. You just quit your job. I was like, because I used my W-2 money to build that foundation. And when it was a time, I was able to pivot in my favor.
What percentage of your W-2 income do you think you funneled into buying real estate?
It really just took probably 2 bonus checks, because I took the first bonus check and put down payment down on a long-term rental. 5 years later, I refinanced it, pulled the original down payment back out. Now I'm at $0 and I'm cash flowing $600 a month. It's a slow game. But then, like, when we were able to flip, we were able to cash out. So it's really that velocity of money.
Yeah.
It's that initial investment that you make. You play your cards right, those cards will continue to multiply on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a snowball.
Yeah.
But the way that it works, and I want to repeat what you said. You took your bonus check and you bought real estate with it. You did not buy bullshit stuff.
I didn't buy a car.
You didn't buy a car.
I didn't buy vacations.
You didn't buy vacations. You didn't rack up credit card debt. Well,
Nope.
you wouldn't do that with cash anyways. But like, you didn't go spend it all on nothing. You literally created wealth,
Yeah.
and you avoided paying taxes on that bonus check.
How often do you get to use $40,000 to control $200,000?
Yeah.
If you think about it that way, it's a very small amount of money to control something that's worth so much money that typically will appreciate over time.
I love this because that's the other thing, is the reason it's a snowball. Even though we call it velocity of money, there is sort of a long game to it, but the reason it works so well is because of leverage. So you said I spent 40 grand to buy 200 grand. And so if that thing doubles in value, you spent 40 grand, but you gained another 200 on top of that, because it goes up on the total asset value. When you understand that leverage allows you to gain on the entire value of the asset in appreciation, that's where the wealth is built.
Yep.
Because you spent 20% to buy 100% and it gains in value on the 100%.
Let's just perspective real quick on numbers. I spent $40,000, bought a $200,000 asset. 5 years later, it's worth $400,000. I pulled my money out. Now I'm $0 into a $400,000 home.
Infinite return.
Infinite,
return.
right? So now if you can do that with 9 doors like we have and continue to grow that over time, I mean, I'm 45, I'll be 46 next month. What does 10 years from now look like?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, because all these loans are at 30-year rates, my payment, with the exception of property taxes and insurance, pretty much stays the same, but rental growth historically continues to grow.
Yes.
Texas is a little bit different. We're going through a strange period that's never happened before, but whatever market you're in, you can bank on the fact that rental growth is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we didn't invest in condos where there's a lot of inventory. We invested in smaller multifamily and single family homes.
Yep. If you're going to go invest in a condo, go talk to somebody first, please.
I hate condos.
It has to be the right condo and but literally, like, go talk to somebody first, and you're better off buying single family. The other reason you're better off buying single family is because the densification of cities and areas is, the more condos, the more buildings, the more multi-use, the more multifamily that comes up. Single family homes are going to be the rare asset, especially quality built, great location single family. So if I were to go buy and hold, which I'm going through a period of selling right now, but if I were to go buy and hold right now, I would go find really immaculate, or not immaculate, but like unique, well-locationed, I don't want to call them vintage, but older homes that you just cannot replicate.
Yep.
The unique homes that you cannot replicate, because in 10, 20 years, they're going to be surrounded by these high rises and these buildings and the density that comes in, and it's going to be a very valuable asset for you to own.
You're describing exactly where I live right now,
Yeah.
right? We live in this north part. Well, it's in Austin, but we have 3/4 acre lots. But it took me 25 minutes to drive here, so I'm really close to the city, and we have the best schools.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let me ask a little bit more about the midterm rental, because you educate people on this. And so what do people need to know if they're wanting to get into like everything that we're talking about right now? All these benefits, what are they talking about? If they want to get into the real estate game and you're focused on midterm rentals, what do they need to know about the benefits, or how do they get into it?
Yeah, the thing that short-term rental investors don't realize in midterm rentals is that our lead times are super, super short. So most of my reservations come in 4 days or less. Sometimes I even get 1 day of notice or same day notice. But they also can book for months at a time. So what that means is that if you understand your market and you understand the behavior of people booking midterm rentals, you could really corner your market. So we run almost 30 midterm rentals here in Austin. I would say almost across the board, it's the same behavior. And I talk to other real estate investors in the midterm rental space. They have the same booking behavior as well. Why? There's a lot of people that are using midterm rentals that are relocating or they're remodeling. If they're remodeling, they're getting a last minute word from their contractor. Hey, we're going to start in 5 days. Okay, then I'm just going to book something in and move in 5 days. Or if you're an insurance client, which I work a lot with the insurance client, they didn't plan on burning their house down yesterday. They didn't know that they're going to walk into their home yesterday and the entire house is flooded because of a leaky toilet. So positioning your calendar is the number one thing you can do. Doesn't matter if you have the right amenities. You have the right calendar. If you're bookable, that is how you get those long stays. That's the secret sauce.
But you are explaining a situation where the owner might go through a phase of weeks, a month, multiple months even, where they're not hosting anybody necessarily? Or is that not common?
So there are seasonalities, right? I think December through January, you have to be really strategic in how you position your home. So otherwise you could face vacancies. The way to do that is just to do really great marketing, position your pricing correctly, your calendar correctly.
So I come from the short-term world.
Yeah.
So I look at occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of occupancy can you expect with a midterm?
So that depends. If you're doing a hybrid model, short-term rental and midterm, you can probably, if you're doing it right, you can expect occupancy of like 85 to 90%. When most short-term rentals these days are hovering between 35 to 60%. Right? Those boring properties, they're struggling right now. If you're in 30-day minimum environments, HOAs, that can be tougher, but done correctly or being positioned correctly, you can get someone in there for a long time. Like we have a 30-day minimum down in South Austin. We've had people in there for 7 months. Prior to that, we had another group for 4 months. I mean, again, it's all about that calendar management. If you're able to bank on somebody else not knowing how to do that, then you're in business.
Yeah. And so let's do some math here. Like what would the typical rent versus costs look like on a property?
Well, I can't talk about cost. That's basically however they purchase the asset.
Yeah.
But if we talk about long-term rent as your baseline, I see midterm rentals as B2C or B2B. There's 2 channels of distribution. If you're B2C, like Airbnb or VRBO, you can probably get anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5x long-term rent.
So if rent is $2,000, then you're saying $3,000 to $4,000.
3,800 to 4,500.
Cool.
Somewhere around there.
Cool.
That's you include all your utilities, the pest control, lawn care, all that stuff, just like you would a short-term rental. However, there's a B2B channel that can be very lucrative because they're willing to pay premiums depending on the length of stay. So, and it's an off-platform pricing and is not advertised. So it can be very lucrative. Like we have 3 to 4x, sometimes even 5x.
And so
long-term
this is
rent.
more along the, when you say B2B, business to business. So this is not going directly to someone that's just like looking for a stay. This is through insurance companies. This is through corporate stays,
Yep.
maybe some tech companies or other channels like that,
Yeah,
right?
for my business, it's mostly the insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're doing something I think that's kind of unique in this space with midterm where you're working to standardize the units, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing there?
When I started Hestia, I had 6 units, and I'd standardized everything. I'm a supply chain practitioner, by the way. So I really believe in universalization, standardization, um, streamlining operations. And when you are able to standardize, I like to think of it like when I walk into a Hilton or a Marriott hotel, I know that I'm getting white sheets, white towels. I know that there's a coffee maker. I know there's a desk for me to work at, things like that. In the Airbnb space, harder to do because everyone has different styles. But what if we can standardize the amenities? Every home has a desk. Every home has good quality sheets, good bedding, good mattresses, things like that. And then we wrap a brand around it to say, hey, this Airbnb or furnished rental has utilized the best practice standards from that we've taken from corporate housing. And we can now say, hey, business, hey, insurance company, here's another one of my standardized properties, and you can feel comfortable bringing your clients in here because, and they're going to be happy and they're not going to complain to you because we've done a good job of making sure that that home is suitable for an extended stay. Like how many times have you walked into an Airbnb where there's like 2 forks and 5 mugs and the plates are all mismatched and it's grandma's bedding from 1950s or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Or they use a quilt.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
hate that. And
Yes.
comforters, oh,
I know.
give me duvet covers,
All day.
give me white sheets,
Yep.
give me white cups, plates.
Yep.
I really, I just came back from the Corporate Housing Providers Association. That's a big mouthful. CHIPA. I went to their conference. I just came back last week. I learned so much. And there's an avalanche happening between corporate housing and Airbnb because this shared economy is getting more powerful. And these employees that are relocating, they're starting to take lump sums instead of relocation packages and choosing where they want to put their money and maybe even bring their family with them for relocation. So are they going to slide into the Airbnb space? Yes, they will. Are they going to be looking for quality? Yes, they will. How do they find quality? I believe that they can find quality with branding.
Yeah. Because the problem that Airbnb ran into when they scaled was exactly kind of what you're describing. Because they basically it went from people like me who had been using the platform for a long time, traveled everywhere all over the world,
Yep.
are generally okay with different types of accommodation. And if there's only a couple forks, I'm going to live, right? But then they scaled and they opened up to basically every traveler and hotel users, especially during the pandemic when there was just everybody traveling. And so a lot of people shifted to Airbnb over hotels. What happens is when you bring in traditional hotel guests into an Airbnb, especially if the host does not do what they're supposed to, and there are issues, and it could be a range of issues, you're going to have complaints. You're going to have issues. You're going to have lower reviews. The guests are going to have a bad time. The hosts are going to have a bad time. It's just not a good situation for anybody when the expectations are not met.
Yep.
Or we don't even know that those are the expectations that are expected because we didn't know that the hotel guests wanted everything that you're describing. So I think what you're doing is you're filling a niche and a need, a market need that is where the money's probably going because you're going to get a higher quality unit and it's going to meet sort of quote unquote hotel level standards
Yeah.
of fixtures and amenities and everything's in there. So
I think so. I think it's important for us to realize that there's a trend of people going back to hotels. If you own a 2-bedroom or smaller, I'd be careful. I think a lot of people are moving back to hotels. And in fact, I don't know if you've driven out Austin, but there are so many of these extended stay hotels that have come up. And they're going to provide a different level of service than an Airbnb operator that doesn't know what corporate housing wants.
that's right. Now the one we're staying in right now, I think meets pretty much everything that you just said. Actually,
Yeah.
it meets the standard, and it's got a lot of uniqueness. But I've been impressed with everything that they have everything.
Yeah, I think people are acceptable to quirkiness of Airbnb, that they're all going to have their own characteristics. But if the basics, your amenities are all standardized, I think people will be really happy.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. So I think you're doing the Lord's work here, trying to improve people's corporate stays because we need the platform to be around and we want people to have a good time.
Yeah.
So, and so tell me, people always like a good horror story. You had a homeless person at one of your properties, right?
Yeah, that was only like 2 months ago.
Yeah. What's the quick and dirty on? Well, what was the issue, and then what did you do to take care of
Oh,
it?
okay. Well, I got some bad rap on my Instagram for it. Actually, I was trying to help her. So I showed up at my property and I realized that there was some folded clothes and stuff that was sitting outside of it. And my husband looked around, didn't see anybody, and we had to go in there and do some things into this empty unit. And then she came back and she was unfortunately, um, she was sane, but I don't know if she was drunk, raspy voice, smelled really bad. She's like, "Oh, I thought place was, vacant." We're like, "Well, no, it's not vacant. Would you please leave?" And I called the police. I called the police 'cause it was getting cold and I was worried for her. And I got some, she left peacefully. "Why'd you call the police?" I was actually calling police because when you call the police, they have fire, they have, ambulance, and then they have when you call 911, I'm sorry. They have fire, they have ambulance, they have mental health. So I called the mental health division and I asked if they could help her. So they came and tried to help her a few times. She refused the help and then she eventually left. So it was nothing dramatic about it at all, except for I had to go and pick up human defecate.
Yeah. So a little dramatic, but so
Sometimes you gotta roll up your sleeves.
but the reason she was there though is she was likely trying to squat, right?
No, she wasn't inside. She was sleeping on the porch.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay. I
yeah,
thought
she
she
wasn't
was
in the unit. She wasn't in
okay,
the unit. She didn't break in or anything, but she was trying to sleep on the porch, on the
okay,
front porch.
okay. So this is just, I think this isn't even dealing with midterm or long-term rental. This is just owning assets, and there's stuff
Yeah,
that always happens. Yeah.
yeah, but I was nervous because I have 4 units side by side, and here she was standing smack in the middle with all of her trash bags and stuff, so I messaged all my guests. I said, "Just so you know, we're aware of the person that's outside. We've called to get her some assistance. Just know that we know about it."
Oh, so this was a multi-unit then
Well,
too.
I have 2 duplexes side by side.
Okay, yeah. So you were doing what was right to make sure that your tenants and everyone were protected. Not that she was necessarily
No, I
dangerous,
don't think she
but
was
yeah,
dangerous at all,
yeah,
but
yeah. I did want to, because you brought up your dad earlier, and I saw a post that you wrote, um, giving credit to both your mom and your dad. And you
yeah.
wrote to your mom, you said, "You taught me to stay focused on my own path and not worry about the things happening around me. It doesn't matter if I'm a minority female in a male dominated world. Just keep doing what is right and lean in on strengths. Success is attracted, not earned. You are Anna Yip, the unstoppable woman who advocated for charity to support immigrants and the elderly, always supporting the entrepreneur looking to create the Canadian dream."
My mom is a bombshell. So we immigrated in 1982 to Canada, to Richmond, BC. And at that time, it was farmland. It's not the Richmond that you see today, which is full of, if you don't know, they call Vancouver Hongcouver
Yeah.
because there's a lot of Hong Kong people there. But it wasn't always like that. My mom worked for HSBC, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation, and she was responsible for helping immigrants get bank loans and opening branches and helping the Asian community thrive. What happened was she ended up being the Anna Yip. We could not walk through a mall, like in Chinatown, we couldn't walk through a mall, a restaurant, or anything. "Oh, hi, Anna. What can I do for you? Like, you helped me so much in your business." It didn't matter that she was a Chinese woman, an immigrant in Canada, full of white dudes in a bank. She just did whatever she needed to do that was right to help the people around her, and people loved and respected her. And that was the role model she was for me, is that she helped people, and that's what I wanna do.
I love that. And so now how are you helping people?
I'm helping people, um, get consistent income by matching their midterm rentals to insurance housing requests. So I'm helping them pivot from being vacation rental hosts into housing heroes.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're extremely grateful because it sounds like an easier life for them.
For sure. I mean, if you get 7 months of consistent income and you don't only have to work with a guest to do a turnover once a month, I mean, how much time are you freeing up?
Yeah.
Right? Because of the midterm rental strategy, not only was I able to get consistent income, but I also got free time to learn how to wake surf.
Yes. Now, okay, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I'm a Dan Martell fan. I read his book, Buy Back Your Time. He's actually my coach. And the concept is you buy back your time so you can fill it with the things that you love to do.
Yeah.
And some of those could be more business, more revenue, more properties, but a lot of it should be going and wake surfing. A lot of it should be going and like getting massage, self-care, going to the sauna. And so I love that attitude because so many of us are on this grind until you die mentality and we think we're doing something when in reality we need to be taking care of ourselves first
Yeah.
and going and doing the things that we really enjoy.
I will admit, I'm still grinding right now because I'm learning, right? I'm learning this business and pivoting and I have the unfortunate gift of being both a visionary and an integrator. So I have to do both because from a visionary side, I have a huge vision. From an integrator side, I have just so much experience from running small business and operations that I just know how I want it done. And trying to train someone to do it rather than just me doing it myself, every entrepreneur's nightmare, right? But I have a really, really clear path after coming back from the conference, after spending time reflecting on what our achievements were last year and what we didn't do right last year. So this year's gonna be awesome.
That's right. 2025 is a strong year. So,
Yes.
all right, Vivian, this has been so great. I really appreciate you coming in here and coming down to the Airbnb and doing this in-person interview with me. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the listeners?
If you would like to learn or if you'd like to get connected with these midterm rental contracts and you want consistent revenue, put your property in my database. If you have a beautiful property, that's what we're aiming for. We look to work with single family homes, pet friendly spaces, kid friendly. Hopefully you're a 5-star host, at least 4.8 stars. Join my database at corporaterentalsusa.com.
Okay. And then on Instagram, where would they find you?
At Vivian Yip _official.
And then you're also on LinkedIn. I see you post there.
And VivianYip.com.
That's right. Vivian Yip, Vivian Yip, Vivian Yip.
Yep. Everything Vivian Yip.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been so great. And again, everybody, this has been For Your Own Good. I appreciate all of you. I love you. Peace.
Peace.